I really wanna like talk about ovie speed and ling scouting. I feel like the thing with ovie speed is that it'll always have a place in StarCraft, but it just like it's always situational. Like ovie speed's like consistent scouting. Always, you'll always get a scout. Rescouts are really strong because like for example Mac and ZVP, you could see like a little bit weirder timings with ovie speed. I used to do an ovie speed at like 4 minutes specifically to scout those timings, but I didn't like it enough to do it in the opener. So there was times where I really liked that. Drops are easy to do. I'd say that's a pro. Problem is with ovie speed is like I'd say the openers are complicated. I really feel like I've been messing up a lot lately on the openers and stuff. And I feel like this is actually my biggest con going into ovie speed, because for people that don't know, I focused like 2 weeks on just ling scouting and showing the different ways you can ling scout, and then I am now doing that with ovie speed, and it's just been like it's hard to keep track of. I'm not used to what I have to do after going from ling scouting to ovie speed scouting. I used to do ovie speed a long time ago, but I'm not used to it. So openers hard to keep up with. I'd say that's more accurate, because you have to do so much with ovie speed. Like you have to make sure they're not double chronoing adepts in ZVP. You can't do it at all if you get pylon scouted. ZVT, I'd say this doesn't apply as much at all. So maybe I could put like ZVP. Weaker economy is definitely a problem too, but it's not as that bad as people make it out to be. Okay, so ZVP, you have to go ovie speed before speed for it to be any relevant, and like you can't just go ovie speed raw. So what most people do is they'll go ling speed, and then they're scouting with their overlord, and then if they see they're not getting chronoed, like the gateways aren't getting chronoed, they'll cancel the speed and immediately go for the ovie speed, and then they'll switch. The thing with ZVPs is you have to react so much. Like if they're double chronoing adepts, you cannot do the ovie speed build. If they're pylon blocking your net, you cannot do the ovie speed build. It's just kind of a lot to deal with. But if none of those things happen, it's totally great. You're fine. I've also noticed, even if they don't chrono boost to adepts and then they just like send out to adepts raw, they can do damage, because that time period where you have no ling speed is lengthened. And yeah, I don't know if it's possible to do it reactively, but Nina was doing that versus me a lot. And I think I might have been getting metagamed, but I'm not entirely sure. So, I don't know, stuff like that is like less important for people who are on the ladder. Getting metagamed isn't a huge issue, but it's something that I definitely noticed. The ovie speed definitely hits you hard in ZVT. ZVP as well. I don't know. It's not huge though. It's definitely weaker economy, but it's like, I feel like it's kind of overrated in certain ways. It's just like, the only thing I really don't like is when you're playing versus someone super aggro, or like with their Hellions, because you're going to have a weaker queen count. Or if they're going 2-1-1, you're going to have a weaker defense for sure. Like the big thing with Zerg is you got to think, if you're investing more gas into an upgrade like Overlord speed, it doesn't necessarily mean worse economy. It could mean less queens, or it could mean less tech. So that's actually something kind of interesting, is when I say weaker economy, it doesn't necessarily mean I have less drones. It just means I literally have weaker economy up until whatever decision I make. I could cut a queen, but it's going to be really bad versus aggressive stuff. I could cut layer, and then we're going to have some weird situations depending on what they're doing. I could just get totally the same tech and queen count, and then just take an L to my drone count. It just depends what I want to do, but also what I'm worried about versus the player. Does that mean it's any better? Not really. it's still a big hit. Like, I feel like when I'm doing ovie speed and ZVT, I feel like I lost a queen. Is how it literally feels. Strong versus greed is how I'd sum that up. Strong, really strong versus greed. This is kind of how I'd sum up ovie speed, I think. Yeah. Very weak versus aggression, but strong versus greed. It gives you a lot of sight to super take advantage of every situation that you're in with ovie speed. I always talk about the time when I was playing a lot. Mech Depot and Acolyte. I always talk about this pool because it really opened my eyes to the ovie speed openers and ZVT in a big way. So season 3, 2017, we had crazy map pool. We had like Abyssal Reef, Acolyte, Ascension, Catalina was in there. I don't even remember that. Interloper, Mech Depot. So the thing about this map pool was it had big mains. It had pretty big mains. And I remember a lot of really good Zergs were getting ovie speed because it was just really hard to scout. And it was like a huge argument between, I'm talking about like pro players, and a lot of people basically just decided was the mains are way too big, we need to get ovie speed, we need to see what they're doing, because the meta was turning into like the really heavy 3cc builds. We need to know what they're doing, and just like really get the best of these 3cc builds, because they're really strong, right? So I was like, okay, well, yeah, pretty much everybody decided ovie speed was like the best thing we could do. It was just way too hard to do slow. There were maps like Abyssal was pretty fine. You didn't have to go ovie speed at all. Ascension I think was fine if I remember right. Catalina was totally fine. But like Mech Depot, Acolyte, I think that was it. I think there was another one, but I forgot. Those maps you had to go ovie speed to check out these 3cc builds, and then thus the meta starts, like people are doing ovie speed for 3cc, then people start mixing it up 211, yada yada. The cycle continues. But the big thing that I realized from that was that ovie speed is not necessarily a meta thing. Yes, people were going 3cc, so it was a great time to do it, but the big mains demanded a reaction. So what I will say is, even if you aren't big on the ovie speed life, you can definitely you would definitely find some good use in these big main maps. I mean, Simulacrum's big main map, but people aren't playing too. Doesn't seem that big. Doesn't seem like a big problem. But this is like a future thing. Like if you want to be a really well-rounded player, you want to know about this kind of stuff. You want to be able to pull out ovie speed appropriately if you need to. This is like this is like the strategy part of StarCraft is, right? Like if you know how this works, this is how you become a better player in general. These aren't like strict rules like you have to do it on like this like hex wide of a main or something. This is like something just to think about when you see these players going like no ovie speed no matter what. Like just because Dark doesn't go OV speed or something. Like, it's just ridiculous, you know. And obviously, like mid-game OV speed is great. This is like a OV speed opener. Maybe we should clarify that. This is like, we're opening with OV speed. We're getting it really quickly. We're getting like 3 minutes. 3 minutes or earlier. I like Ling Scouting way more. Like, Ling Scouting is just, it's simpler scouting. I don't know if I should put this as 1, but I'm just gonna riff for a second, then we'll edit. Simpler scouting, it's definitely more intuitive. This is the biggest thing for me. Just, it feels very natural. It's also necessary. Even if you're an OV speed player and you're doing OV speed, you will find times where Ling Scouting is still preferable. Like, for example, there are situations where you're versus Archon drop. It's like TC Robo immediately into Archon drop. That's a situation where you could patrol OVs around or Lings. The thing is, if Archons catch OVs, it's a lot bigger deal than Lings, right? Especially so when it's like a Phoenix opener into an Archon drop, you're gonna want those Lings on the map over OVs, because they're cheaper, but also like they're quicker than OVs at patrolling around checking for prisms. So it's just they are actually better in certain situations. It's like the most cost efficient scout in the game. There actually isn't a more cost efficient scout in StarCraft besides maybe like oracles coming in and revelating, or like an adept shading, but no one sees anything with adepts anymore, so it's fine. Cons, I'd say like every game is a mystery. I don't know how else to say this. Every game you're a detective. There is no way to beat around the bush. You are like piecing together units, like you're like counting gateway units, and you saw Chrono, you're pretty sure, but you're not entirely sure because your Ovi died just at the second the Hex got it to the Stargate. Was that a Phoenix? Was that an Oracle? I'm not entirely sure. You know, like there's like a lot of weird stuff that happens when you're playing with Ovi speed. Or not OV speed, but slow OVs and Lings. You gotta use all 5 of your senses. You know, like Turkey Deno says, you either got it or you don't. It's definitely something that's learned. No, it's not like a natural. You just can or can't do it. This is something you learn with time, and this is what I suspect is the biggest reason why OV speed players don't go to the Ling Scouting life. Is because they're hand-fed information so much that they literally just don't understand how anyone can play like this. And in a weird way, when I was playing OV speed, I was like, holy, like this is crazy. Like I'm seeing buildings I'd never seen before. Like I saw like gateways at times that I didn't think that they were built. So then I actually second guessed my my info a lot, and I was like really confused by having more information. So you're a detective. Maybe every game you're a detective. This is like a better way of saying it. It's all on you to figure out. You are thinking, how do I say it? Like the first couple times you face anything, you are thinking actively, which I would definitely say is a bad thing. But after that, you'll get it right away, and then it's all in the back of your head. You just know it. And the reason why I say actively thinking is a bad thing is because like if you're actively thinking about the situation, it implies you're not used to the situation and you're not playing as fast as you possibly could be. Of course, if you need to win a game, just actively think about it, and you know, you do what you can. You do your best thing. And Kimchi says, so you're gambling. That's not really entirely true, but there are points where you have to gamble. So here's a really good example of ZVP. So it's a depth stalker. You just don't know what he's doing. You know it's a depth stalker, but it could be Stargate, Double Oracle, or it could be Robo First. Hell, it could even be Twilight Council into some of the stuff. You have to make a Spore 330, right? You can check around for proxies with your lings. You will know for a fact, if you're diligent, that there is not a proxy, but you will have to make a spore at 330. Now, are there things that could help that? Did he make his warp gate right away? If he did, it's not looking so much towards the Stargate. How is he moving his units? Is he moving super aggressively? Is he playing super defensively? If he's aggressive, maybe he has an Oracle to back him up no matter what. If he's playing super defensive, maybe it's because he hasn't. Those are literally his only defenses. Things like this matter a lot, right? You can look on paper, oh, I don't know because he has a Stalker. But there's little things happening in the game, like the warp gate, like how he's moving his units. Maybe you can see some gases. That's actually not really applicable to this situation. But there are things you can do. How many spores? It'd be just like one in the main. Because usually what you do is you make a queen at 32 at your natural, and then one queen in the main. Or not one queen in the main. One spore in the main. And then you have two queens in the natural, one spore, and one queen in the main. And then you just defend everything like that. But with these little things, chrono boosts are huge too as well. What they're chrono boosting, where they're chrono boosting. I tell you, this is a uphill both ways story, but like back in Wings of Liberty, as a Zerg player, you had to know exactly what they were doing based off of a gateway, a cyber core, and a forge, and maybe one gas at the natural. And you had to base what they're doing entirely off of what units they made, how many chronos they spent, where they're spending their chronos. You literally counted chronos, and you determined the build based off of that. And the reason why this worked was because everyone was playing so on point at that time in Wings of Liberty that if you like try to mess with the chronos and then did something else with the chronos to attempt to like mind game, your push just didn't work. So whenever people talk about like the correct thing to do, it usually means it's correct because everyone's mechanics are pretty good. You'll find a lot of times like as a diamond player, I know I had this feeling when I was like a diamond player or like platinum. I'd be like, man, I did everything right, and then I reacted perfectly, but then he did some crazy like dumb build that I didn't expect and I lost. Well, that just means that I wasn't playing well enough to truly beat that build. Like if someone beats you with a build that doesn't work, that means you just weren't able to keep up in these like for example, based off everything you've seen, it's a BC opener, but then he ends up going like a bunch of cyclones and then killing you. It's like, well, if his build was really that bad, you'd be able to beat it just through having stuff in general, because the build's technically so bad it should die to anything. These are things you have to consider when you're playing Ling Scouting. But I'm kind of conflicted on this point. So I feel like there are times where ovie speed's just better because you don't have to worry about these specific things that I'm talking about, counting the chronos. Where are his units? Would he make warp gate right away or not? It seems like a lot. It's really a lot to deal with, and it's like too much if you're starting out. So I have this feeling of newer players should just go ovie speed opener. I think that's like pretty good thing to do. But then also I feel ovie speed just cuts too much of StarCraft's, or not even StarCraft, it's Zerg specifically, early game from the game when you're going ovie speed. Because if you end up in like Masters and then you're now just learning about these little things, I'm not sure if it's better or worse than like right away from the beginning when you're just whatever you placed. I'm really not sure. I have a feeling that it's better to learn in Masters than it is like silver or bronze, because there's more things you have to worry about that are just totally more important. StarCraft's a lot about finding what's the most important thing and working on that first, and then working your way down the list. So I guess ultimately I would say Ovi speed is better for newer players. There are times where you have to 50-50. I don't know if I necessarily say this is a con or just like a way of life. It just like sometimes it just has to happen, but it's usually not a bad thing. Someone pointed out that you know, even if you made the spore, it could be good because they could be going DTs as the alternative. Like, oh, he wasn't going Stargate, but he's going Twilight Council, and now I'm now covering an option for DTs. That's definitely a half glass full way of looking at it. I don't know if I'd be too happy about making it 330 spore for DTs, but it happens. Yeah, I can't think of a really good instance of a 50-50 you have to tank, but usually they're through circumstance of you messed up a lot and now we're here and I have to take a 50-50. It's very rare that I have to take a 50-50 because of you know, just like a totally normal instance, no one took any risks and now I'm just in a 50-50. It's usually like I suicided my Ovie right away and he went Stalker first, and then I just got bad luck. Essentially if you 50-50, you'll very likely have to 50-50 again. So, you know, if you suicide your Ovie right away, he gambles correctly, goes Stalker first, now you have to 50-50 really hard. And that's a situation you wouldn't even take the risk to begin with if you're going Ovie speed, right? Is losing Ovie put you in a worse spot rather than going for Ovie speed? Like I lose the Ovie and I don't see anything, or I saw something with the Ovie. Because if I see it, it's value. If you see absolutely nothing with the slow Ovie and it just dies, then Ovie speed is going to be way better than that. But if you see something with a slow Ovie and you lose the Ovie, that's great. That's what you want. Going Ovie speed just to save your Ovies from dying when you scout is not worth the investment. It's way more money to mine the gas, get the Ovie speed, and then scout than it is to just send a slow Ovie in. Make no mistakes, playing slow Ovies in ling scouting is definitely the most optimal way to play as far as like your economy. You are min-maxing hard on economy while playing like this. Does that mean you should min-max literally everything? Not necessarily. There's a lot of preferences in StarCraft, but this is the most try-hard way of playing StarCraft for sure. You need to spend 100 mils on extra Ovie rather than 2 more drones. Yeah, but the if you're going Ovie speed, you're mining more gas, and those are the 2 drones that you would be having mining minerals, and that's like the same exact idea, but just like 2 minutes earlier than usual, so it's even more important. If I lose a drone, for example, to a Reaper at 3 minutes, it's way more big of a deal than if I lose one drone to a Hellion at 5 minutes. It's actually night and day difference. That's kind of that's like what I think about when you're talking about that, because I much rather do the ling scouting with the slow Ovie by just taking as much economy as I can to put myself into whatever opener I like, and then just take that Ovie hit later. I will say ling scouting is definitely the harder way to play, but if you are trying to like learn the game in a really like I don't even know what you'd say, like all-knowing way, like you really want to figure out the nitty-gritty of Zerg, you want to be ling scouting for sure. But if you're just getting into the game, or just getting into Zerg even, Ovie speed scouting is a really nice way to get you like consistently into mid-game without having to worry about it. and you can just focus on your injects. Like if I was just starting into the game and I could give myself advice, I'd say focus on inject, and then put ovie scouting in general on the back burner, and just focus on the really hardcore fundamentals, and then go into ovie speed later. I'm not sure how much later I would push that to. Maybe like plat diamond, I'd start thinking about ling scouting and stuff. But yeah, even with the like new player angle, even if you're a masters player, a GM player, even if you're a pro player, you want to know how to do this stuff. And if you're a pro player, you already know how to do this stuff. But ovie speeds, never gonna go away. It's always gonna be there. There's always gonna be someone who's doing it, and there's always gonna be a map or even a map pool where it's necessary. I mean, I was talking about big mains earlier, but even just like there's just not a lot of good paths for the lings to scout with. There's so many different things that could be going on here. But yeah, just knowing this stuff is really important. Knowing why you have to do ovie speed sometimes, and knowing what you can do off ovie speed. Another good pro actually is potential all-ins. There's actually a lot of good all-ins with ovie speed. Actually, a lot. Like there was a time where like Roach Ravager with Queen Drop was strong. That's fallen out, but also like, or in ZVT that was a thing. But there's also a similar thing in ZVP right now. That's pretty good. I think ZVT there are some things you can do with it, but it's not nearly as oppressive as the Queen Drop build was initially. But I think this is something that's important to mention because there will always be something you can do. Like, let's just say hypothetically there's a world where you can't do any Roach Ravager Queen all-ins and stuff. There'll always be like ling drops you can do in the mid game while you're droning up, and there's always potential damage you can do. So maybe I should just call this potential harassment. Yeah. So in a way, ovie speed is more versatile for sure. Yeah. Yeah, these are just my thoughts. I've been thinking about this a lot of the last couple weeks, but mostly the last couple days. And I think this is my best way to sum up these two scouting methods.